Okay, so I'm trying to think of how this is supposed to go down. What I'm trying to do, it's funny, here I am rambling, and I'm wanting to make these videos 5 minutes or shorter where I'm talking about one verse, one passage, whatever, and I'm in a hurry because I want to do it fast, but yet I just want to be real and have fun, and I want you to know that I'm trying to be fast and blah, 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 blah. Hey, have you ever been called a bleeding heart liberal? Well, ugh, I've been called a bleeding heart liberal, and not too long ago, in the past couple of weeks, I was arguing a point, and I said I'm not a bleeding heart liberal, but and I got to thinking, where the heck did that term come from? What does it mean? And why would I say I'm not? And should I be? And is it a bad term? Is it a good term? What's the thoughts? And at the same time, there's a part of me that feels like I should be a bleeding heart liberal. I should be. Well, there's this Bible verse. There's this Bible verse that honestly it kind of bothers me. It kind of makes me struggle. And well, forget that. It's not a Bible verse, but I'm going to talk about one specific verse. But it's not a Bible verse that makes me struggle. It's the whole stinking message of Christ. It is the message of Christ is good night. It feels unattainable. It feels impossible. It feels like more than I can do. So I'm not a bleeding heart liberal, but I should be. But should I be? Huh? Should I be? Am I? Should I not be? Where did it come from? Westbrook Pegler was extremely good at calling people names. Evidently, this is the guy who first used the term. He, particularly politicians, in his syndicated newspaper column, he called Franklin Roosevelt Moose Jaw and Mama's Boy. Truman was a thin-lipped hater. Pegler was a bit of a hater himself. He didn't like the labor movements, communists, fascists, Jews, and perhaps most of all liberals. You know, it's funny when I read that. He didn't like labor movements, communists, fascists, Jews, and most of all liberals. There's part of my brain that goes, well, not liking those people are obvious, you know? And you say, Josh, that's horrible. I can't believe you said that. It's not a part of my brain that I acknowledge and agree with, but it's a part of my brain that like all of my life, communists, those were the horrible people. Fascists, horrible, horrible. Jews, well, they're going to hell, but we love them. That was kind of the world I grew up in. But most of all, yes, I grew up in a Reagan family, in a Bush family, in a very, very liberal is a disgusting word. But anyway, in a 1938 column, he coined the term for liberals that would eventually come to define conservative scorn for the left. Pegler was the first writer to refer to liberals as bleeding hearts. Okay, so where did it come from? What is being called? What is a bleeding heart liberal? Well, here's that passage that screws me up. Recently, in the past month or so, shoot, it's all my life. But there are two stories that just kind of they tug at my heart, that are just really hard for me to deal with. In one scenario, somebody came to me asking for money, and I had no compulsion, no compelling, no feeling, no spirit lead to give them a dime. In fact, my gut said, not only should I not give you money, but nobody else should give you money either. It's a mistake. It's not healthy. It's not wise. Do not give this person money. Now, I didn't vocalize that. I didn't tell people not to give this person money, but it just felt wrong. It felt bad. I was afraid it'd be used for something that would be damaging to this person's family, damaging to this person's kids. So the answer was no. I'm not giving them money. In another scenario, somebody was asking me to give them money, and in my mind, I was pretty sure that this money was going to put them in a situation where they would always need to ask for money. It was putting them in a situation that would never be sustainable. I mean, it's like a teenager asking if he can borrow $1,000 to make a down payment on a Ferrari, and he would figure out on his own how to pay the $1,000 a month next week. And it's just not a good idea. So I said no. But this whole Jesus thing, this whole following Jesus thing confuses me. I gotta be honest, it's kind of tough. Give to him who asks of you. He didn't say think about it or give to him who asks of you if they're going to use it for a good reason. Don't give to him who asks for you if it's going to help them. But it just says give to him who asks for you. Now, I don't know how to handle this. But it's not that I don't know how to handle this. It's that I don't know how choosing my way of choosing to handle this versus other people's way of choosing to handle this. I don't see a very consistent story here. It's funny to me that the people who would call others bleeding heart liberals are often evangelical Christians who believe the Bible is the inspired, infallible, inerrant Word of God and that it's perfect and that you got to follow it completely. But then when it comes to Matthew 5:42, they have no interest in even considering the seriousness of Matthew 5:42. And the other odd part of this is they would say that there's a difference between you giving and you doing what others ask of you and then you encouraging an entire government or society to be required to do this. And I agree. I get it. I'm with you. I don't always give to him who asks of me. Sometimes I turn away from people who want to borrow from me. Does that mean that Jesus was a bleeding heart liberal and I'm not? I don't know. Pegler first used bleeding heart in a column castigating liberals in Washington for their focus on a bill to provide penalties for lynchings. Well, surely to heavens we can all get on board with that. Surely to heavens all of us can agree that there should be penalties for lynchings. But Pegler wasn't that he was in favor of lynchings or that he was a horrible racist. Possibly that's what this article says, and I don't know the guy. I don't know a story a bit about him, and I haven't dug very deeply, and I don't think it matters. So let's not get into the argument of whether he was a racist or not, or whether he was mixed up or not. Just understand his thinking. His thinking was the government, the federal government, shouldn't solve a problem of 8 lynchings in 1937. He said it is obvious that the evil is being cured by the local processes. Now, we could all argue, no, it wasn't, or yes, it was, or the government has to step in, or we could all argue about this, but I'm not asking us to get down into the nuances of the real details of the argument. I just want us to see this from a big viewpoint for just a moment. And I don't want us to see this to point our fingers and to call other people bleeding heart liberals or call people raging Republicans or raging Democrats or any of that stuff. What I want us to do is to see this story from a bigger viewpoint just for a moment. His argument was it didn't make sense for the federal government to take their time, money, and resources that are limited. All of our time, money, and resources are limited. And so when I give to this cause, I don't give to this cause. Not because I mean, it's not that I don't have, I only have so much time. I have so much time and money and energy for this. I have so much time, money, and energy for this. And if I have time, money, and energy for everything, time, money, and energy for everything, then I may be in a situation where I'm having to sacrifice its opportunity costs. And so what he was arguing is that the opportunity costs of the federal government didn't make sense for them to do something to save 14 lives a year. Let's let the local government handle that. Right or wrong, that's not the point. The point is you got to see this struggle. You got to see this struggle. I don't know why I put this picture here. I mean, I know that it's in the article and that it says the bleeding heart, but anyway, where did the phrase bleeding heart liberal come from? So it came from it got popularized in that writing in 1938, 1937. But before the 20th century, the phrase bleeding heart was popular in religious oratory. Religious oratory. Why? It was of Christ's wounded heart. It symbolized compassion and love. So as you think about the whole idea that the bleeding heart we're talking about, Whose bleeding heart? Jesus's. So when you call somebody a bleeding heart liberal, are you calling them like Jesus? Considering that Jesus was the original bleeding heart liberal, this is by somebody that's totally anonymous. It's kind of difficult to claim that liberals aren't into Christianity. The group that is anti-Christian is the right wing, and is as obvious from their behavior and from their policies and from their statements. It's very difficult for a bigoted racist who likes to see sick people die to claim the mantle of Christianity. The two positions are incompatible. Isn't that interesting? I mean, so you got people on the left saying it's the right that's incompatible with Christianity. People on the right saying it's the left that are incompatible with Christianity. Hey guys, maybe we should get this point. The people who are incompatible with Christianity, it's us. Right and left. It's all of us. We're incompatible with Jesus. I mean, here's this sign where the guy's, and I marked out who it is, but he's saying, you might recognize the cartoon, but it says, get a job after taking a bath. I mean, is it, in reality, is it not true that when we see Jesus for who he is, whether we're right or left, both directions, we're kind of not living up to it? Now, I'm not saying this to say, wow, you're bad, spank, 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 we got to do better. That's not the point. That's not at all the point. The point is this. We better stop pointing fingers at the right and the left, because really, it's us. Does the fear of being called a bleeding heart liberal keep followers of Jesus from following him? You understand what I'm saying? People who are a little more right-leaning, people who grew up like I, who just the word liberal sounded like a curse word, sounded like a bad thing, like a communist or a Nazi or a fascist. Liberal, communist, Nazis, fascist. I mean, with all those nastiness. For us that grew up like that, does the fear of being called a bleeding heart liberal keep us from actually following Jesus and being like Jesus and giving to those who ask? I don't know. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. Man, I could go on and on just talking about this one passage, but I'll say this, and then I'll stop. Sometimes when people ask me to borrow money, my brain automatically goes, well, it's not Christian to borrow. It's not Christian to loan, because, the slaves loaned, slave is the person who borrows money is slave to the lender, and if you want to be a Christian, you just give it, and if you want to follow Jesus, you just give. But here Jesus says to give to him who asks of you, and don't turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. And I go, well, man, this is just hard. It's just hard. Can I make a loan to somebody? Should I not? Jesus here, did he imply that I should? Jesus here definitely said to give, but I know I'm not always going to give. When somebody wants me to give and I know it's going to hurt them, I'm not going to do it. Am I ignoring Jesus here? Yes, no, maybe. Am I a bleeding heart liberal? I don't know. Am I a Christian? Man, in some ways, absolutely not. Do I want to be? Am I trying to grow and follow Jesus? That's the point. Maybe I'm growing. Maybe you are too. Maybe we can grow together, and when we see inconsistencies in the other, in somebody else, maybe we should work hard to see the inconsistencies in me at the same time. And as I see my inconsistencies, maybe I'll be more loving towards their inconsistencies. And maybe somehow we'll figure out how to give and how to loan and how to help and how to encourage and how to give people a hand up instead of just a hand out, and all of those, all that stuff. But bleeding heart liberal, I thought you should know where it came from. And I thought you should be aware of the fact that this struggle is okay. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. Good. That's a good word from Jesus. I don't think Jesus meant for us to take it as an exclusive message, but maybe he did. I don't know.